Welcome to the second night of Gotham for Beginners. This is our first year actually doing Gotham for Beginners. Every year in the Gotham Storytelling Festival, we have so many awesome, wonderful storytellers. This year, we decided to have a beginners program for people who haven't had storytelling things done before and want to try, want to join in, all of that fun, awesome stuff. So that's what we're doing today. It's night two. Today we have Jackie Camel back with us, and then we also have Craig Scott. So this is going to be great. This is going to be awesome. And we have one more night of it. That is tomorrow. The show will end tomorrow. Also, if you hear anything from outside, everyone in my neighborhood has been celebrating, as have I. So this is going to be a great, wonderful, fun show for you. Up first, we have Jackie Camel. She is a pop musician in New York City. She's known for viral TikToks, snarky attitude, interesting outfits, and good hair, which is what, of course, she's known for, because of course. Jackie is an aspiring lawyer, a decent writer, her words, not mine, a professional procrastinator, and a prolific songwriter. She's a native masshole, of course, and has lived in Brooklyn for over a decade, and before COVID, of course, hosted a Cuckoo's Open Mic with fellow storyteller Jackson Sturkey, who will be on the program tomorrow. So please, everyone, give a virtual round of applause for our first storyteller, Jackie Camel!
Hey everyone, so check this out. So 3 years ago, I decided that I was going to go on a vacation. Now, I'm reminded of this story because everyone's hearts are beating real fast right now for Georgia, but I have already beated my heart quite fast for Georgia in life because 3 years ago, I decided to take a road trip to Georgia. And I did this in a 1992 Toyota Tercel. It was powder blue. They don't make those cars anymore, but it's a very small sedan. Now, some of you watching may or may not know this, but a few years ago, I wouldn't say I dated someone, but I had relations with someone who is, and I know it's popular to say that your former lovers are crazy, but he had mental problems. And one of those mental problems was he was a hoarder, and he clinged on to things. And I actually inspired him to move from Arizona to Pennsylvania to New York City. And I did that with the hopes of him, pursuing a career, but he did it so he could be with me. It's a whole other story. I won't burden you with it. So anyway, he finally gets to New York. All right. And I figure, okay, I got this dude a job. I got him an apartment, and I wanted to go on a 6-week vacation because I just can't stand living here anymore. All right. And so I decided, okay, can you please lend me your car? I'll pay the insurance. I'll park it for you. He was gung-ho about it. It was fine. The only problem is like I said, he's a hoarder. He buys useless shit. He pulls over to garbage piles on the side of the road and digs through them like he's Belle from Beauty and the Beast or something. And his car was full of crap. His trunk was like a closet that a teenager would have when their room is suddenly clean, like you can't open it or everything will spill out. And the entire car was filled to the brim. There's garbage bags and coins from all different places, tokens from old arcades. And all I asked was, hey man, before I leave, I need to fit 6 weeks worth of stuff in here. Okay. I'll help you. I'll do it myself. He insisted he had to be there. Okay. So we go to the car wash and I start vacuuming out this car, and I'm talking old McDonald's French fries, cigarette boxes that were empty, wrappers from gum, and I'm not a saint. I get it. Normal stuff you'd find in a car, maybe if you don't have children, because if you have children, you have cereal and stuff. But this dude had so much garbage in his car, and I cleaned it out. I didn't complain. I didn't say anything. But then when it got time to empty the trunk, he was just too emotionally exhausted from the whole ordeal. And he was like, no, I don't want to. You'll just have to take it as is. Which means I had to fit 6 weeks worth of stuff in the back seat of this guy's car. So I managed to do that because I'm very good at cramming things in when need be. And I go down to Maryland and I'm there for about 3 weeks. And the summer's going by, I stay on a river with a farm and I'm relaxing and decompressing and life is much better, much calmer. And I decide I'm going to go travel to a place I'd never been before, Savannah, Georgia, right? It's a beautiful, romantical place. And I wanted to go with my best friend, Brendan, who at the time lived in Massachusetts. So I drove down to Georgia in this 1992 powder blue Toyota Tercel, and it is so small. It is like half the width of a normal travel lane. And I'm driving down and I get pulled over for speeding in Virginia. So I try never to make that mistake again because I'm like, okay, great. I'm in somebody else's car. I need to chill out. I get to Georgia. I get to Atlanta. I pick Brendan up from the airport. We go to a restaurant. He has a few drinks. We play some trivia. I'm pretty sure we won. Regardless, I didn't drink anything because I was driving. Now, this was 3 years ago, and at that time, I did smoke pot. And I know what you're thinking. How could someone wearing this not smoke pot anymore? But I hold on to things, so sue me. So at that time, I'd had my roommate who is just this master joint roller. She like learned how to roll joints. Like I think like some monk in Cambodia or like Somalia. I don't know. It was like the Kill Bill of like rolling joints. Like she was taught by just like this legend somewhere. So she rolls these perfect, tight, just beautiful joints. And I got so spoiled by it that actually the reason I quit smoking was because she refused to roll me anymore. We had a falling out. It doesn't matter. The point is I don't smoke anymore. And, but at the time, she rolled me 12 beautiful road joints and we put them in a cigarette box. And I had them in the car and I was waiting for Brendan to show up. And he gets in the car and we decide to just gun it from Atlanta to Savannah in one shot. It's already like 9:30 at night. Savannah's like 4 hours away and it's one highway. But we decide to do it, whatever. So we're going down to Savannah. It's around, who knows, 11 p.m. And we're going through the only other metropolis in Georgia. It's called Macon County. All right, it's right smack dab in the middle. And it goes from an 8-lane highway in Atlanta to about a 4-lane highway in Macon. And, you know, we're driving along and smoking a road joint. And I'm feeling pretty responsible. I'm not hotboxing the thing. The windows are down. And I drop my phone, which is the GPS and the music on the passenger side floor, and I go to pick it up. And of course, I swerve a little. But again, I'm in a 1992 powder blue Toyota Tercel, right? So I'm not swerving out into traffic. I'm not sideswiping anybody. Okay, I minorly swerve a little bit. But regardless, they were on the hunt. Of course, they were on the hunt. It was not my lucky week. So I see the blue lights flashing from behind me. And of course, we get pulled over and I'm thinking, oh my God, shit, just get as much fresh air into this car as humanly possible. And I thought maybe this will work. Maybe, just maybe, you know, but I was stoned and I only 50% trusted myself. So the sheriff pulls up and he comes up to the passenger side and, you know, the windows are down and he goes, license and registration. And I'm about to explain to him like how awkward this is going to be because, well, I'm driving an Arizona plated car with Pennsylvania registration with my New York state license with Brendan's Massachusetts license coming from Maryland in the state of Georgia. So I don't really know how to piece it all together. Plus, who knows where this psycho put his registration because I never thought to check the glove box. You would think I would have. But anyway, I go to attempt to explain this story and he just goes, you know, on second thought, step out of the car. Now, I've never been asked to step out of a car before. I'd have my license for 10 years and I'd never gotten in trouble. Perfect record. So I'm thinking I am so fucking screwed. So we get out of the car. Now there are two cops. I'll call them good cop, bad cop. Bad cop's the one who approached the car. He's more the aggressive machismo of the two. But the other guy, he's like this chubby, older, like nice, like next door neighbor type gentleman. And as soon as he sees Brendan, he's like, hey man, sit down right here on the guardrail. Brendan sits on down, starts rolling his own cigarette because Brendan rolls his own. And, you know, they start bonding over the Atlanta Braves because Brendan, who knows nothing the fuck about the Atlanta Braves, by the way, always wears an Atlanta Braves hat because his grandfather was a Braves fan. So he always wears it. It's his lucky hat. So the cop's like, oh, let's talk about the Braves. And Brendan's like, okay, I'll just make up like things that I know off the top of my head, which was great. Great relief because the Pats had just beat the Falcons that year. So he was trying to steer away from baseball as like a common conversation while I tried to deal with the bullshit from Bad Cop. Now, in my head, I'm thinking, okay, how am I going to get out of this? What do Southerners hate more than anything? And I hate to say this, but at the time I was like, ooh, know-it-all liberals. So I just start spewing things. And he goes, I'm going to search your vehicle. I was like, well, I believe that you need a warrant for that. And you know, I think I need the proper documentation. He goes, I have probable cause to search your vehicle because it smells like there's a pound of weed in here. Now, I didn't want to outwardly tell him it's probably because I just smoked a joint, but I also did want to let him know, like, dude, you are wasting your fucking time. We are going to be here for 6 hours if you search this vehicle, because what I knew and what nobody else knew is that that trunk, okay, was still full of Psycho Dude's shit. And I knew exactly what was in said trunk because when I was in Maryland, me and the guy I was staying with, we decided to fix the car to return it into a better state than it was when I borrowed it, because that's Southern hospitality, that's manners, right? And so we decided to install a radio, at least for my sanity. And in order to do that, you have to climb through the back of the trunk and hardwire, which means I had to empty the trunk in front of everyone down at the farm. So I had a big black plastic garbage bag, and I'm pulling shit out of this trunk that you wouldn't fucking believe. It was like an old antiques roadshow in the middle of nowhere. It was like someone cleaned out a storage space that no one had left behind. There were paintings. There was this portrait from like a rectory of like this religious figure. There was this kooky painting that his artist friend did, and it was abstract, but in the center of it was this black naked basketball player, and his ass was in the front, and he was doing one of these, and he was holding a basketball, and it made no sense to me what the picture was, but that's what it was. And keep in mind, this dude lived in Arizona, so he actually used to do gun reenactments at the OK Corral. All right, he's crazy, but he's also eccentric and somewhat interesting if you could stand him long enough. And so he had a lot of blanks, a lot of like fake-ish guns. He had a tomahawk. He had a cowboy hat. He had like child capes and disco boots and goth shoes and stained boxer shorts and comic books and regular books that no one's read that collect dust in people's houses. He had like user manuals to things from the 90s. He had like old, like deflated basketballs and just weird toys, action figures with the heads cut off. It was like a grown-up Sid from Toy Story. It was like this poor man. It was too much. It was too much. And it was all in this garbage bag in the trunk. And it would have taken hours to go through. And it wasn't mine. I'm not going to jail for someone else's tomahawk. I'll tell you that right now. So I'm standing there panicking. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, he wants to search the car. I'm like, sir, I know this sounds too convenient, and I'm sure I'm baiting you by telling you this, but this isn't my car, and half of this isn't my stuff. I was like, I'll show you where all the drugs are. Ready? So I open up the back seat, the door, and I go through like, you know, my toiletries, and I pull out a little medicine bottle, and there it is, 5 grams of weed. That's all that I had. That's all that I had. And the cop took it and he looked at it and he goes, I don't know, nah. And I knew he had the bloodlust. He wanted to make a big arrest. He wanted to go back and be the cock of the walk at the station and arrest some northern liberal for like 500 pounds of weed. But like the thing is truly, I only had 5 grams. I mean, I'm not that much of an idiot, right? So he starts searching the car and he finds the road joints, which I really wish he didn't find, but I'd also kind of forgotten about in the haste of everything. And so then once he found those, it's like, you didn't tell me about these. You're a liar. And I'm searching the whole car. I'm like, sir, I promise you, we're going to be here until 4 a.m. And he's like, that's fine. Go sit over there next to your friend. So I go sit next to Brendan, who's already cozied on up. He's like sharing a cigarette with this cop. They've exchanged numbers at this point. Like they're best friends. And I'm sitting there like, well, I know nothing the fuck about the Atlanta Braves. And I'm just like, how am I going to get out of this? What am I going to do? Do I cry? But I was too high to cry. I was having a heart attack. And I was like, what do I do? How do I get out? Because here we were in the middle of Macon, Georgia. It's almost midnight. I don't know anyone in that part of Georgia. I'm about to get me and my best friend arrested. This crazy psycho guy's car impounded with all my stuff in it. I'm going to a jail in the South wearing flip-flops. All right. This was not a situation. I thought of all the jobs I was never going to get because of this stupid incident. And I'm thinking to myself, and the cop is pulling out my bras on the freeway, my baby blanket. He's going through all my perfectly packed stuff. And I'm like, you know, dude, you don't, like, I told you where and I'd shout out like intermittently, like, you know, I told you where they all were. If you get tired, like, just let me know. And I'm sure that didn't help, but like, I was trying to be nice. So anyway, he gets to the trunk. He's like, I'm going to search the trunk. And I'm like, sir, please do not search that the trunk. Nothing of mine is in the trunk. It's all belongs to the owner of the car, who is not here and who isn't responsible for any of this. And I turn to Brendan. Brendan's like, what's the big deal? I'm like, the big deal is you know whose car this is and all his crap is in the trunk of it. And Brendan looks up at Good Cop. He's like, man, I got to tell you about this guy. I don't know how they ever dated. So Good Cop and Brendan are, you know, wax poeticking about my whole life, or waxing poetic, whatever. Meanwhile, Bad Cop is just pulling shit out of the big black plastic bag. And all of a sudden, you know, my head's down to the ground and I'm trying to consider my way out of this. And I don't really see much happening. And all of a sudden I hear, is this a priest? And I look up and Brendan goes, I think that's a bishop. And Good Cop turns around. He's like, what religion is this? And Brendan's like, I don't know, Catholic. I'm like, Lutheran. I have no idea. And Brendan looks at me and I look at him and I'm just like, oh God. He puts the painting down and just keeps going. And I'm like, Brendan, you don't even want to know what's next. And all of a sudden we go, what the hell? And I look over and there it is on the side of the freeway in Macon, Georgia. Some conservative bad cop sheriff is holding this big painting with some naked black basketball player. And I'm like, I'm going the fuck to jail for a very long time. He's going to find the he doesn't even need to find the tomahawk at this point. Like, just, you know what? Just book me. I'm done. I'm 86 to the showers. And Brendan's like, honestly, you really should know who owns this car. The dude is a fucking psycho. And the cop's like, I'm starting to piece that together. And he starts digging. Then he gets to the dirty boxer shorts. And then he goes, you know, and I'm crossing my fingers. And he looks in the spare tire, because I think that's where people keep all the drugs anyway. And he's like, well, I guess as long as this doesn't have anything in it. And thank God I cleaned out the trunk, or else he would have had to dig through all that shit to get to the spare tire. I don't know if you're watching this, but I saved myself a lot of hassle that you could have saved me, but that's neither here nor there. So anyway, sitting on the side of the road, narrowly avoiding all kinds of jail time, all kinds of weapons charges, who knows what else. So he starts shoving the paintings back, and I'm like, yeah, dude, break them. I don't give a shit at this point. And he comes right up to me, and he looks real frustrated. And he says, stand up. And I do. And he goes, all right, I need you to take a breathalyzer. And I go, what if I said no? And of course I hear the head smack, and it's Brendan. He's like, dude, can we just get the hell out of here? And I'm like, no. And, you know, like I said, there's nothing that annoys Southern conservative, you know, sheriffs more than liberal know-it-alls from New York, I imagine. So I was like, well, I think that you as a cop are supposed to give me my rights and tell me what my rights are if I refuse a breathalyzer. They don't often work well. They can be tainted with and blah, blah, blah. He's like, shut up. And he's like, just sit on the car. So I'm sitting down on the car on this 1992 Tercel. The whole thing goes down to the ground. I'm just sitting there, and he's like, watch my pinky. And I'm ready for this, because I've rehearsed the alphabet backwards my whole fucking life for this moment. I love pop quizzes. It's just a thing, and a field sobriety test is no different. Like ZYXWVUT, like I am ready. So he pulls out his pinky and he's like, follow my pinky with just your eyes. I'm like, oh, I got this. Because like the high was scared out of me a long time ago. And I'm like, I don't think you really have cause to give me a sobriety test. I wasn't drinking anything. Well, I smelled booze when I pulled up to your car. And I was like, well, you pulled up on the passenger side. He's like, well, I guess that means he was drinking then. I'm like, oh my God, Keystone Cops over here. So I'm following the pinky. And I don't know what drove me to bring this up, but I go, you have a really, really long pinky nail. The cop looks at me and he's like, what does that mean? I'm like, I don't know. It just seems very well manicured. And he was like, I keep it like this so I can give my wife back scratches. And I was like, that's cool. Like, that's cool, man. That's cool. And he goes, so what kind of weed is that? Indica or sativa? And, I'm playing dumb. Like, I don't know what that means. Is it Native American? And he's like going on trying to educate me about weed. Like, I don't already know. Like, the shit was individually bad. Like, bro. So anyway, he's teaching me about weed and he's like, just sighs this frustrated sigh. And he's like, you two stand right here. And so Brendan and I are standing on the side of the road. And this is when, the deliberation happens. And good cop's just like, whatever, peace out. And then he goes into his cop car and bad cop just stands there and he tosses the cigarettes down on the ground or the road joints and he smashes them with his foot and he's like, drugs are bad. And he just keeps smashing them like it's Christmas or something. Then he takes my bowl and my grinder and he tosses it off the side of the freeway and I hear them shatter on the ground below and my heart just breaks a little bit. And then he takes this giant 5-gram nugget of weed. He simply drops it right betwixt Brendan and I. And we look down at it and we look up at him and he goes, and that's all. And then he walks straight to his car. And I'm like, we're not getting arrested. He's like, did I book you for anything? Like I'm the asshole in the situation. And he gets into his car and, like good cops like, oh, call you later, B. And Brendan's like, yeah, no problem. Like they became friends. And he won't let me forget it to this day. So then they drove away off into the distance. And Brendan and I are both watching the taillights fade. And we look at each other. And we look down to the ground at the weed. And then we look up and say, we're going to need this. And that's my story of how Georgia almost gave me a heart attack the first time. Cheers.
Yay! Oh my God! Everybody give it up for Jackie! Oh my God. That sounds like 5 different layers of nightmare. If you are just joining us right now, we are on our second night of Gotham for Beginners as part of the 2020 Gotham Storytelling Festival. Up next, we have Craig Scott. Craig Scott is a father of 2, originally from Baltimore, Maryland, currently residing in High Point, North Carolina. An actor, an activist with a very unique artistic and political past. Please, everyone, give it up for Craig Scott! Yay!
In my journey as an artist, I can't say my career as an artist, as I've never made a living at being one. As an artist whose art is acting, writing, and directing, I would have never believed which way my life would go. First, you must understand my relationship with the arts and theater is best characterized by an aria in Puccini's opera called Tosca, in which Floria sings about living for art. Floria is a singer who's caught up in a revolution, when in fact, the only thing she wants to do is her art and practice her faith. My art, theater, was my faith. I was born and raised in the city of Baltimore, and I went to public schools in the city of Baltimore. And I couldn't wait until my 16th birthday so that I could drop out. Going to Baltimore's public schools was very, very difficult. It's probably because I couldn't afford the fine clothing, so I got a lot of ridicule about that. And then a lot of things that they were teaching seemed to be very, very irrelevant to me. So going to school was very difficult, torturous to say the least. But then one day in music class, the music instructor is reading an announcement. He's telling us that the Baltimore City School for the Arts is having an after-school program in which students will be instructed in the various arts: dance, theater, music, visual arts, theater. Immediately, the light goes off. I've been watching a whole bunch of 80s episodes of Fame, which is about the School for the Arts in New York. And I knew enough from watching all of these episodes that a School for the Arts is not a regular school. So immediately I saw my way out. I saw my way to escape public school. So I'm sitting there while he's still reading the announcement, and I'm running through my mind all of the various options. Because keep in mind, I have no experience or talents whatsoever. So I'm going through the list. Let's see. Visual arts. I can't draw. I can't paint worth a damn. That's out. Music. Can't sing. Hell, I can't play the saxophone I'm supposed to play for music class. Dance. Well, just like on the show Fame, I'm like Leroy. I'm not going to wear tights. Theater. Acting. That's the only option left. So, without having any experience or any knowledge whatsoever, I ran home and I sat down and I wrote what I would later come to find out was something called a monologue. Now, in my monologue, it was going to be about this man who was down on his luck and he was going to have a job interview. But the job interviewer was going to turn him down. And when he did, the man was going to let him have it. So I wrote it. This was going to be my piece for the after-school program. First, one problem. I would have to perform this piece in front of my mother. Now, if you know anything about Black mothers back then, my mom was not going to allow her son to embarrass her with a terrible performance. So I sat in front of her while she sat on her couch, which was really a fold-out bed. I sat on a chair and I performed the most dramatic job interview ever. Well, after my performance, she didn't say much, but I could tell that I passed the embarrassment test. So I would become one of the many kids who would audition for this after-school program. Now, this after-school program was called TWIGS, TWIGS. This stood for To Work in Gaining Skills. I would go to the school and they set me out outside of the lobby where the auditions were going to be held. And there I met the first person I met who actually attended the school. She was this funny looking white chick, but she was real cool. And she was there to help me and everyone else to relax, feel welcomed to Baltimore's version of Fame. And she did a pretty good job. I was relaxed. I felt good, but I was nervous. So eventually they called my name. So I walk into the area where I'm supposed to have the audition, and it's this big, beautiful ballroom that they converted into a theater. So I walk in and I give my name to the panelists at the table. There were 2 white men and 1 Black woman, and they would practically hold my academic future in their hands. If I don't get into this after-school program, I am through with school. I am going to drop out. So I perform this monologue like my life depended on it. So I finished, and I think I did pretty good. So I returned home and waited a couple of weeks, a few weeks, maybe even a month or so, and the letter came. So I opened up the letter and they said, "You are accepted into Twigs." And my life changed at that moment. Oh my God. So I would go, I had a new lease on life. I was motivated now to go to school and the whole 9 yards. So I would go to this class and come to find out I was a pretty good actor. I mean, I learned about improvisations. I learned about monologues. I learned about scenes and all sorts of things. Also, there I learned about playwrights like Amiri Baracus and Athol Fugard. And these are Black playwrights that basically incorporated the issue and the ideas of Black liberation and Black equality into their plays. Now, this is the first time that I'm getting the understanding that through your art, you can express revolutionary ideas. Well, this stuck in my mind for a very, very long time. So I would go on and I would actually enter into the Baltimore School of the Arts as a student. And after that, I would be admitted into Boston University's School of the Arts. Oh, I live for art. I live for love. When I got to Boston University's campus, I really, really got deep into the Black militant movement. In fact, myself and others, we would start a group. We called it Muscle, MOSL, and it stood for Men of a Stolen Legacy. Now, the title or the name of our group was based on a book called Stolen Legacy, The Egyptian Origins of Western Philosophy. I believe it was by George G.M. James. Now, this is very important, this book. So, me and my fellow revolutionary Boston University students, MOSL members, we would get on the Boston's trolley subway thing. It's like they two of the same things. And we would go to a nearby college to hear a revolutionary speaker. One of the many things that we did as MOSL, we used to tutor kids on the weekend, and we would also bring in revolutionary guest speakers like Bobby Seale and Kwame Ture. And he's who we were going to hear or listen to at this college. So we get to this college and we go to this gymnasium. It's filled with a bunch of chairs. So now it's been converted to almost looking like a lecture hall. This is where Kwame Ture, who was formerly known as Stokely Carmichael, he's going to give his revolutionary speech. Well, he comes out. And I mean, he's this tall, slim, dark-skinned Black man wearing an African dashiki. And when he's speaking, he has this West Indian accent. It was amazing. But when he starts talking, there are a few members in the audience, they get up and they're starting to hold up placards and flags. And most of the flags were Israeli flags. So now I'm realizing, I said, oh, these people are here to protest the fact that Kwame Ture is speaking. I had never seen anything like this in my life. So he gives his speech and it's fiery. So at the end of the speech, me and the members of our group, we helped to escort him out of the lecture hall, because of all of the protesting. So we escort him out and we take him into the small room. And we get a chance to talk to the revolutionary Kwame Ture. Boy, we couldn't wait. So, we tell him, hey, listen, man, we revolutionaries. We started a group. The group is called Men of a Stolen Legacy. Kwame says, oh, The Stolen Legacy. Yes, I'm familiar with that book. Have you read it? Well, we get to looking at each other, and not a single one of us have ever read the damn book. So here we are standing in front of our first revolutionary leader, embarrassed as hell. Never forget that. Also, while I was on Boston University's campus, I was knee deep in the anti-apartheid movement at the time. Me and the brothers, we basically provided security for an anti-apartheid rally that was being held on Boston University's campus. Here I would meet an ANC ambassador to the United States. It was real heavy, real intense. But all of this political activism that I was doing on the campus came to the attention of the administration, and they decided to cut my scholarship. So now I'm stuck in Boston. I'm living on the campus for several months, and I'm totally broke. I'm so broke, I've got to start stealing Twix candy bars, peanut butter flavor. You know, they don't make that flavor anymore. I'm stealing Twix candy bars and boxes of chocolate chip cookies as my meal. This will be my first encounter with true poverty. Because of my activism, I'm now paying the price for the very first time. Eventually, I would return back to Baltimore. And when I returned to Baltimore, I went and, tried to find a job, and I landed a job. I was working as a mail clerk in a law office. Unfortunately, I would be laid off. Unfortunately, I would be laid off at the exact time that I was about to have a child. Now, and I'm already angry at a society that I feel is unjust. This was the last straw. So I decided that I'm going to use some of the tactics described by my second love, Assata Shakur. She wrote a book called Assata. And in that book, she's explaining how a revolutionary cell is organized. She's explaining how revolutionaries raise money for their political activism. I'm going to use these tactics. And that's when I started robbing banks. So following Assata Shakur's example, I actually put a cell together of my own. So that way the robberies became even larger. So now I have the money to take care of my wife and my children, but also I'm going to produce my own revolutionary play. So I would write and produce a revolutionary play with a very controversial title. The name of my play was Can a Nigger Do Shakespeare? Very controversial. But interestingly enough, the answer to the question in the title was no, a nigger can't do Shakespeare, but a black man can. The play was about revolutionary leaders like Malcolm X and Marcus Garvey and Martin Luther King. It advocated direct action and retaliation against white supremacist violence. Whew, heavy stuff. Unfortunately, it would bring us to the attention of the authorities. Little did we know, COINTELPRO still existed. So we would end up arrested for the bank robberies. So now I was like Mario in Tosca, imprisoned. And Scarpia wanted me to inform on my friends. And I wouldn't and I couldn't do it. So I was convicted and I was sentenced to 52 years, even as a first-time offender. I was put away, and being away, I was taken from my two loves, art and revolution. I was taken from my family. I was taken from my future. Being incarcerated for my militant activism vanished forever my dreams of love. But I have never loved life so much. Thank you.
That was wonderful. Everyone, please, please, please give a virtual round of applause for Craig. That was spectacular. If you would like to see Craig one more time, the final Gotham for Beginners is going to be tomorrow. That is going to be tomorrow at what time? What time tomorrow? I'm checking the show for tomorrow. What time is it? I'm checking on my thing. 6 p.m. 6 p.m. 6 p.m. tomorrow. Woo! It's been a very, very long day for me of just eating my feelings and also drinking an entire bottle of wine. But 6 p.m. tomorrow, Craig is going to be back on Gotham for Beginners. We're also going to have Jackson Sturkey. So please, if you loved what you saw with Craig, I know I did, please tell your friends and send links out. Buy tickets again. They're pay what you can, so it's fine. But yeah, everyone, please, please, please go celebrate for the rest of the night. And you can celebrate even by watching more Gotham storytelling shows, because art is activism and we still need a lot of it, even though a wonderful thing just happened today, like officially. But everyone just have a wonderful night. Please go to frigid.nyc to get more tickets to the other Gotham Festival shows. And enjoy the rest of your wonderful, wonderful Saturday. Thank you all for tuning in.